I'd like to bring into the conversation now to discuss more on these developments. Timothy Loranger, he is an LA trial attorney, Marine Corps vet, and also a pilot. Timothy, I want to thank you for joining us here at Live Now from Fox. I'd like you to start by just telling our viewers who may not be fully aware of what this Osprey is used for, just what it's intended to do during military operations.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, and also for putting, a light on this very important news story. The Osprey aircraft is a workhorse of the military. It's operated by the Marine Corps, the Air Force, and the Navy. And it is a very unique aircraft because it is able to take off like a helicopter and then fly like an airplane. It has fulfilled the role in the Marine Corps of the CH-46, which is a two-rotor helicopter. It has taken its place, and it's really an important piece of military equipment for completing the mission that the military has.
So yeah, here on the screen, I just put up a little bit of a video of what that aircraft looks like. Very impressive stuff there. However, since entering the service, looking at some of the stats here, the Osprey, it's been involved in more than a dozen accidents in which many people have died. Now, tell us about some of the mechanical issues clearly that are faced when flying this aircraft.
Yeah. Well, it is a complex aircraft. Just to get it to fly in both the helicopter and the aircraft modes requires some very intense engineering. And so issues over the years, issues have come up. In the last year and a half, there have been 3 crashes, very notably a crash in 2022 that killed 5 Marines in California. The Marine Corps investigated that crash, and they came to the conclusion that there was an issue, something that they call a hard clutch engagement. Basically, this is an issue that has occurred in the clutch system of the aircraft that caused one of the engines essentially to stop operating, and then the pilots were unable to control the aircraft. They were unable to determine, based on their report and their investigation, exactly what the cause of that was. So that brings up the question of whether or not that issue, which has been known actually since 2010, is tied to these last 2 crashes, the one in Australia in August, and then this latest crash in Japan.
And so see right there, Timothy, you have noted a few times where this has been very hazardous, even on training missions, which is what just happened in Japan. So why is it that this aircraft has not been pulled from service yet?
Well, it has, when these crashes happen, generally the military will take a pause and ground the aircraft while they perform an investigation to determine whether the aircraft should stay out of service or whether it's safe to go back into service. Unfortunately, even those pauses haven't been enough for the Marine Corps, specifically considering the 2022 crash, to determine why that occurred. What was the root cause of the mechanical failure? It's an important question to ask. Why is it that they don't just hit pause and keep people safe and out of the aircraft until they make it as safe as possible? The answer to that is pretty simple, actually. The military has a very important mission that it has to complete. And unfortunately, the decisions have been made that the mission is more important right now than it is to find the cause. Hopefully, what they're doing is they're doing a very detailed analysis, benefit, to risk, and they're not putting people at risk unnecessarily. Unfortunately, what that doesn't do is it doesn't make the Marines, men and women in service who use these aircraft, who get on these aircraft every day, it doesn't make them feel better, I don't think, or their families, to know that there are issues still out there.
I guess you could say that having this Osprey clearly has more advantages, more pros than cons, even though it has caused some deaths, especially during training missions. Now, that probably has to do with the fact that no other aircraft can complete what the Osprey can do, and there's nothing else that kind of in the works going forward, right?
Yeah, this is a relatively new aircraft. It went into service in 2007, and it serves a very important role. And there isn't anything, I think, that could take its place in a moment's notice. I'm not I did serve in the Marine Corps. I'm not currently, in leadership. I'm not part of the decision-making process. But the hope, and I believe, is that the Marine Corps is doing the best, is making the decisions based on the information that it has. However, the families who've been affected by this, they really would like to know. It's desperately want to know what the risks are going forward, so that the people who are using these aircraft, who already put their lives on the line every day, to know that they're not doing this unnecessarily or unreasonably. Serving in the military is dangerous, but the risks that they take should be calculated risks.
I want to talk a little bit more about that because apparently you're also representing a group of widows who have filed a lawsuit demanding answers from that crash that happened back in 2022, in which you had said 5 Marines were killed. Tell me about this litigation.
Well, actually, a lawsuit has not been filed. We're very early on in the litigation. I do represent the families of some of the Marines who were killed in that crash. We are working very hard to gather as much information as we can. It's very early, and I can't really discuss the specifics. But what I'm trying to get for them are answers. What I'm trying to get for them is assurances that everything is being done to determine what the cause of the crash is, and then make sure that changes are made so that their friends and family who are still in uniform are not taking unnecessary risks.
Let's talk about these risks going forward. Someone that has served in the Marine Corps, you understand somewhat what these risks are, clearly being in the Army or in any type of Army force, Marines, Navy, you name it, it's going to come with risks. It can be deadly. So what exactly do you think would be best practices going forward, let's say if the military were to change some of its process when dealing with aircraft like this or anything else?
Well, I think it's interesting with the military, money is always an issue. They're constrained by the budget that they have. And so the work that they have to do to investigate these crashes and make changes, a lot of times has to do with a lack of funding. That's been my experience in working on similar types of cases. So making sure that they have the resources available to them to look into these crashes and then to make changes that are necessary. Taking aircraft out of service, not using equipment that is unsafe, that is very important. Making sure that they have all of the pilots and the crew members and the people who are going to be using these aircraft, make sure that they have all the appropriate training that they need. We've seen in the past, there was a sinking of a marine amphibious vehicle. That the issues there were many, but a lot of it had to do with an inability or a failure to train the Marines in how to escape a sinking vehicle. Hopefully, the Marine Corps and the other branches of the service are doing everything they can to make sure that their personnel are properly trained.
Timothy Loranger, a trial attorney based in Los Angeles, but also Marine Corps veteran, a pilot, and also you had been spending years as an aircraft mechanic. We really appreciate you coming on to Live Now from Fox, giving us your insight on this a very pressing story right now, because again, it is military operations, there are risks, but just a devastating outcome for everyone involved.
Thank you so much for having me.